just being I think that showing your qualities too, really being clear about who you are as a leader, what makes you unique, what do you feel passionate about, what impact you want to make. Because when you're really clear about that and intentional about that, then I think other people really want to follow you. And, you can get across those ideas that, you're talking about, how to, really not only be inspired by me, but also emulate me.
Guys, I'm super excited to introduce you to Carrie Vanston. Carrie is a coach that I have known and admired for a very long time. She owns a company called Leadership Mindset Success, and she has one of these amazing ways of working with people to really pull out the best in them. You would expect a coach to do that, but she does it in such a way that is so intentional and so mindful. She is really outstanding and exceptionally great at what she does. I've really come to admire her in so many ways, most importantly because she's just such a cool person. Can't wait for you to meet her, so let's dive right in. Carrie, welcome to the Ripple Effect Podcast. I am so grateful that you're here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Well, I am pumped for this conversation. I got to be honest with you. I have been a huge fan of yours for a long time because you have, I've got to say, one of the best spirits of people that I have had the pleasure of getting to meet and know. I saw you speak a couple of years back, and it was just something that really stood out to me in terms of your presence, the approach that you take. I can see why you're well sought out as a coach because you have that presence of mind to really be that calming voice for a lot of your clients. And where does that come from? How did you get such a great chill approach to life?
Well, I worked for a long time for a technology forecasting company. And what we found was that people didn't just want to forecast the future, they wanted to actually create the future and build companies and start companies of their own. So we came up with a list of best practices to find small trends that would become these big opportunities.
Yeah.
That turned into a book in 2011 that I co-wrote called Mini Trends. And it won a couple of best book awards. So we started doing workshops around it and consulting around it, and then we started doing a conference. And so I led a conference for 3 years. And met a lot of people in town. We had about 20 speakers each time, so it was a really great way to meet people. Got to love a lot of people in town and get a lot of knowledge about what they did. What I found over time was that there was just a lot of people, especially in corporate, that were really unhappy because they couldn't use their creativity and they couldn't use
Yep.
their innovative ideas.
Yeah.
So I started really looking for kind of a solution for that. And I got really interested in culture. So I started really diving into conscious capitalism
Yeah.
and all this stuff. I just absolutely loved it. Started helping companies with that. And it was great. But after a little while, I realized that there was just something missing. There was just so many high fives you could do that, there was something missing. There was something deeper that, you
Sure.
needed something, a leadership mindset, and so I started really looking around for something to kind of solve that issue. And in 2016, I went through a 9-month executive coaching program, IPEC, and I just came out. It was very extensive and just kind of really it leveraged all the innovation background and culture background I had, and really gave me the tools and methodologies to really change that leadership mindset to something that would really raise that level, so that the leaders could actually to create an environment that people could really thrive in, and be able to use their ideas. So and then it really helped me,
Yeah.
so that I could blossom and do many many things. So for the last 6 years, I've really been focused on changing that leadership mindset through either coaching or team development or with presentations.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love it. So let's go back though. So I'm really fascinated by the fact that you sort of went down this path of data first. Like, so how did you get into that as a career path to begin with? I mean, give us a little bit of your origin story, and then catch us up to the, kind of where that led you down that path for data. I mean, I love that fact that you started connecting the dots and how that's led you to your current work. So that's amazing, and I want to come back and talk about that. But I'd really like to hear a little bit more about how you became you.
Oh, gosh, I've always been a real adventurer. So, I got out of college. I started working for actually my family company, and I sort of worked for them. I still actually my umbrella is under the technology forecasting group, but I'm very much an adventurer. I got out of college. I continued to work there, but I went to New York City and I studied acting, and then I went to Dallas, and then I went to California, Los Angeles, and then
Wow.
finally I came back here like oh gosh, 20 years ago, and I just really focused more on just on the aspects of forecasting and also the communication part of it. I was the vice president of marketing and communication for the company for a while, and then that kind of shifted into the mini trends piece, where I really became a conference leader and started
Nice.
leading that piece. And then, really the making a difference in the world and really creating my passion is really for working with people and making people more happy, and creating an environment where people can really thrive, and creating that mindset that we're only here for a short period of time.
Sure.
Let's find ways to really create happiness in our lives and happiness for other people by intentionally choosing how we live and intentionally having some ways to help us do it in the best way possible.
I love it. Well, so when you were in school, where did you actually attend university?
I went to University of Texas, as a
Okay.
matter.
All right.
Yeah,
Hook 'em, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah.
my son just graduated with his master's degree from there, so I feel like I'm a stockholder now of UT, and I love it. A great school, but so you really had the creative bug, right? In the arts and moving, in the direction that you did first, and so when you came back and part of the family business. Do you still like venture into that space at all, in terms of the creative arts, or acting, or voiceover, or any of that type of work?
Well, the umbrella company Technology Futures. We actually have a art nonprofit called Art 84, and so we do a lot. We do exhibitions. We just we're opening up an exhibition Friday. So I'm a one of their. I'm the kind of the person. I'm one of the. What am I called? I'm called the advisor. So I'm involved with that, which is really exciting too, because I love that piece of it, where you've got a creative piece that you're really supporting the arts as well as. So,
Absolutely.
we Art 84 is basically to try to get just regular people interested in art, dance, and music.
Oh, that's
Um,
great.
we kind of cater to really getting the people that might not be interested. The dancing. I'm a big dancer. Uh,
Really?
and my brother, who's the executive director of the Art 84, Larry, he's a super big dancer. So he really encourages the dancers to come out and appreciate the art and the artist. And then, like for example, we had something at the mansion. What is it called? Neil Cochran
Oh, yeah,
last.
yeah.
And the artist, Cornelius Clark, he's a African American, and he's also a dancer. He's also a dancer, what do you call it? South American, a tango dancer.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
some of his paintings are tango dancers. So when we had the opening, we actually had tango dancers come
Oh,
out and dance
wow.
on the front lawn of Neil Cochran. Like in the front there, and they have it's one of the mansions, and so they
Yeah.
have that front porch, and we had dancing, we had tango dancers dancing in the front there.
Oh, that would have been cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool. So it's kind of like the art and the music and the dance all kind of together, and a different kind of group than you usually would see at some place like that. So it
I
was
love
cool.
it. Well, you can see just in your eyes, those things light you up. I mean, it's clearly a passion for you. And I would suspect some of the lessons that you've learned being a dancer really helps inform how you coach the clients that you work with, right? Because there is a bit of a tango, there's a bit of a rhythm that has to align with a coaching client. Tell us a little bit about your coaching practice and sort of the approach that you take.
I really do work on that. Basically how to change in an intentional way the way you think about things. So, I start with an assessment called the Energy Leadership Mindset Index, and that
Now,
really
let me interrupt you. That's the assessment that is, so this is what kicked off our conversation, right? Because you were
Mhm.
featured in an article where you were talking about this assessment and how you utilize it with the leaders that you work with, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah, and assessments are super great for really kind of getting a foundational piece. I always, sometimes I do it just by themselves, but often I do it as part of my program
Okay.
to really give that foundation. And there's different kinds of assessments. There's the strength finders, which I talked a little bit about in the article in Texas CEO Magazine. There's the personality ones that this is really kind of shows you where you're at, and this is super valuable. I love to give those to my clients. As a matter of fact, I just gave for one of my clients, I did one of my executive coaching clients. He asked me to come in and do assessments for his team. So I did strength finders, 10 strength
Yeah.
finders, and then I'm going to go back in a couple weeks and I'm going to do a debrief. I'm going to do my own presentation to start with, and then a debrief of the 10 assessments as a group. So that'll be really, super helpful for them to kind of get an idea of where they are strength wise. But the other one I do is the energy leadership, and that was an attitudinal one. So it shows where you are right now, as far as different, where you are, like, what are you in conflict? Are you in win-win? Are you in compromise? Are you in visionary? Where's your kind of your energy and your mindset right now? And it's great at showing that. And then we can say, okay, well, you have a lot of compromise energy, which is great, but compromise energy is not win-win energy. You want it,
Correct.
it's like nobody gets what they want. And so let's figure out ways to raise that energy so that it's really true win-win. And there's various ways you could do that.
Yeah.
Like, for example, one of the things is that people really want to be cared about. That's what really makes our little hearts beat. Is we want to be cared about, and we want what we're doing to be useful and appreciated. So one of the things I tell my clients is, like, really get to know your people. Find out what their passions are. Ask them what they did on the weekend. Really,
Yep.
really figure out where they're at, because then that opens up the communication. And to create that win-win, you need to understand what the other person wants, so that you can reflect it as a leader, and then know what their win is, what your win is, and then you can lift the conversation from compromise or conflict to
Sure.
compromise to win-win. And then when you get that win-win, two or more people connecting together, then you pop up to that visionary where you're in the flow. So it's like, as you raise that. So that's one really great ways to get to know the other person. Another great way um, is asking open-ended questions.
Yep.
Because if you ask, well, how do you like doing this job? You say yes. I'm sorry. Do you like this job? Do you like doing this
Sure. Yeah.
job? Yes or no. But
That's
if you
right.
say, well, what do you love about what you're doing?
Right.
What
What
really,
excites you? What motivates you about what you
yeah.
do? Yeah.
Suddenly, we open up and we start talking and talking and talking. So open-ended
Well,
questions is a huge thing.
I think you touch on two things that I think are really important, and I don't think leadership pays nearly enough attention to it in most organizations, is how critical it is for you to know your people, get out from behind the desk and actually have those conversations, because trust doesn't get built overnight. It's built over a period of time. And you find that a lot of organizations have the leadership philosophy that, we're an engaged organization, but then you ask, when was the last time you actually had conversations with your employees? Well, you're delegating that, or they're finding that, well, we get together on an all hands meeting, once a quarter. Or those are the
Mhm.
things that I think are big misses for organizations, because it really does take getting down at each level and having that conversation, like you said, but having something more to say than just, well, how's it going? How are things around the department? Are,
Mhm.
we taking good care of you? Like you said, open-ended questions have to invite conversation, and that conversation invites the engagement. And that engagement's where your trust is built, and also the loyalty, which I think is super critical. So I'm curious, you know, sort of coming out of COVID, because that was thrown upon us in such a unique and challenging way. And now you have this challenge, kind of a tug of war between organizations that are saying, hey, well, now we need to bring people back. And you have employees that are like, I don't want to be back. I want to have the flexibility of working virtually, and I can still do my job. You can still trust me, but I don't necessarily need to be coming through the office, door every single day. How do what you do in terms of the work, how have you seen that play out, and how have you been able to maybe sort of write that, what could potentially be a conflicted situation in terms of leadership and the team? How do you diffuse some of that situation to get a better positive outcome for all?
As far as the leadership goes, I think it's being really intentional and being sure that people are being, feeling heard. It sounds like from everything that I've read and what I've, experienced is that kind of the hybrid might be the way to start,
Yeah.
where, you have
Compromise, right?
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, because a lot of times people really love that freedom of having part of the day, at home, but it's super important to connect with each other too. And with younger people, that's one of the ways, the younger, the emerging leaders, that's one of the way they really connect with other people, and they, they're already stuck on social media so much that it's absolutely essential for them to grow as leaders, to have some kind of, I think, connection to the others that, they're growing into those positions, or they're already in those positions, but they need to connect with people on a one-on-one basis. So I think it is important to have to have that connection of person. Some of my clients do some of their meetings on Zoom, which is fine, but I really encourage them, bring your people together
Yeah.
too. Even if you don't have every meeting in person, at least have as many meetings as you possibly can, because the dynamic is just different. There's just a stronger connection. So I think it's important to be intentional about really, connecting as much as you can. And it's just, there's something about being connecting in person. But on the other hand, I think, in a way, COVID was really, in some ways, a real blessing,
Sure.
because it did get us off, so that, the more we started being on Zoom, I used to be able to get on Zoom, but it would take like 10 or 15 minutes. It wasn't worth it. It was like, it would,
Big
half
headache.
the session would be over, and
Yeah.
now we get right back on. But it's also important because we've gotten used to uh, interacting online, so it's not the same as in person, but we're much more used to it, so we get more of the cues than we used to before, because we were kind of forced into that situation of kind of having to do that. Matter of fact, now, we're much more aware of reacting to eyes, because our mouths were covered for so
Yeah.
long.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Well, one of the things I was thinking about as it relates to the work that you do, especially around the assessments, part of the, like you said, a lot of flexibility from a leadership perspective, understanding that leadership mindset that you have and making sure that you're communicating that effectively so that everybody understands where you're coming from a leadership angle. But at the end of the day, I think it's also really important those assessments become even more of a critical tool to utilize, because they help you uncover some of those hidden gems within your people, their drivers, their motivations, their, sort of where, like you said, they're emotionally at, feeling about their job, and what their flexibilities are within, their day-to-day responsibilities. And it's probably a really good indicator, don't you think, Carrie, that as to who's gonna flourish when you do provide that hybrid kind of environment, and who maybe might need a little more hand holding, a little bit, not, I don't mean supervision in a negative way, but more or less that mentoring and coaching through how to continue to keep the ball moving down the field. but also from those people that like, they got that. So I don't really want to be an impediment to the progress by trying to make a strategy, sort of one size fits all. The assessments can really help you understand, how do I adapt as a leader to the people that I'm chosen to lead.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that, definitely. I think, and just being I think showing your qualities too, like, really being clear about who you are as a leader, what makes you unique, what do you feel passionate about, what impact you want to make. Because when you're really clear about that and intentional about that, then I think other people really want to follow you. And, you can get across those ideas that, you're talking about, how to, really not only be inspired by me, but also emulate me.
Yeah.
And I think you were saying something about being connecting, the leaders connecting with, their people. I think the more that they can intentionally show, ways to raise that mindset with, then they will give those same ideas to the people that then can go with the people under them, so that it become it cascades.
Yeah.
uh, and so, yeah, just really that listening, that, and there's different ways to listen. There's the listening subjectively where, do you like this idea? And the other person goes, oh, I don't know. And you say, oh, let me tell you all the ideas. So it's very subjective kind of listening. Or, there's the more objective kind of listening where you say, well, what do you think about this idea? And the other person says, well, I don't know. And you say, well, tell me why you don't like this idea. So that's better.
Sure.
But can be intuitive. You can be an intuitive listener and say, you say, well, what do you think about this idea? Well, I don't know. And you really start looking for the signs of, how this person is reacting, what mannerisms, what physically are they doing, what is the tone of their voice, and you really start reading between the lines, so to speak. And then you say, well, it kind of sounds like something's bothering you here. Can you tell me more about that? And well, what's going on? I noticed that you kind of hesitant here.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the conversation opens up. And when you start doing that, you start understanding the other person and what their needs are. Then again, you can start creating those win-win situations. And then when you do that, they start doing the same thing to the people they're working with, and they bring it home to their family. And
Sure.
all of a sudden, this intentionality grows, and people start looking for, we really start looking for the value in the person too, and their strengths, like you talked about. It's important to know our strengths, because it gives us a foundation to, really build that positive mindset.
I think it's interesting because the work you and I do, there, we should find some projects to work on together, because I think we would just be a dynamic duo. But at the end of the day, it's kind of funny, and I'm sure you've heard this too. A lot of times when I'm talking to leaders about what I do and how I go about my approach, you hear things like, well, this is common sense, or, these are soft skills. We're focused on the hard skills, right? And the thing I don't like about the fact, that people default to common sense is, your common sense is not my common sense. And, this other person's common sense is not our common sense. And everybody comes from a different set of perspectives, different experiences, different family and upbringing. There's all these different factors. Plus, where we are sort of exposed now with all of the social inputs that we get, right, really impacts our common sense in a lot of ways. And so those things, when leaders kind of default to that, kind of drives me a little nuts. But then the soft skills piece, it's funny because soft implies simple and easy, and there's nothing simple and easy about connecting with another human being. It's a real art form, and it really takes someone that has a commitment to it, someone that has to see what the long game is, but not be too forceful or not too dictatorial about what's going to happen. And I think that's where the challenge ends up being with a lot of leaders is, we haven't trained people how to connect as good human beings, how to have these conversations, how to get to know one another. The assessments, I think, really provide a good baseline, because like you said, it really does give a good opportunity for you to say, okay, here's where this person is in their life and in their career path today. Doesn't mean it won't shift tomorrow, or it might be different a year from now. But in this present moment, the best that I can do is understand who I have in front of me, and how do I can adapt my skill sets and my ability to really make an impact with that person. So I'm really curious about, what your perception is when thinking about sort of how you promote yourself and the work that you do, how you really convey, that value add to the leadership team who, hey, you need it, but your people need it as well.
You're talking about the people needing it. I think that it's also the leader needs it. That
Yeah,
they need to connect to themselves. I think that's like so important. How do I feel about this? How can I bring up my? How can I stop getting stuck in my own stuff? My own crap. How can I stop micromanaging? How can I start feeling like like a imposter? How can I
sure.
start feeling not just putting it out to other people, but actually feeling good and feeling like I'm confident and feeling like I'm sure, even when I'm uncertain that, I feel confident about being uncertain, like okay about it.
I will go into those waters uncertain,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah,
okay.
exactly. So I think that that's super super important. That's one of my coaching program. I really go into the emotional intelligence piece of it. How do you really feel within yourself and portray that to other people. How do you really there's all sorts of techniques that we can really help us, like journaling, or because when you write down something, suddenly it becomes a story in your brain, and
Yeah,
you have this big old giant subconscious mind that only has feelings, and then you have this intellectual mind that's much smaller, but we have all of these thoughts, and it's like, how do you open up to your the more that law of attraction thing, where you're feeding positive thoughts into that huge subconscious brain of ours, and techniques on that. How do you to change the with have affirmations. If it's something negative, you getting dragged down on something negative, find some positive twist to it, so that you can think about it in a positive way. Because when we're working with positivity, our brain can really things start going off, all these ideas and
sure.
opportunities and innovations go off. But if we're stuck in the negativity of it, it's very difficult. So having these ways
Yeah.
to be able to raise that mindset to a more positive
Well,
journey.
and you say something that I think is really important for our audience to pick up on, right? Is the vast majority of us stay stuck in the negativity, in all the things that we don't do, which feeds those negative stories that we're telling ourselves. And so the work that you do, I think, is so critical and important because it's allowing you to shine a light on the things that we have sort of wrestled with for a while that impact our confidence, which then impact our performance, which impact our career path. And we bring that out into the light and we basically say, hey, this isn't necessarily scary. In fact, the stories you've been telling yourself, you're blowing this thing up a lot bigger than it ever was. Just because you asked for a raise and didn't get it doesn't mean that you don't have value to the organization, that they don't depend or appreciate your efforts. It just might be a timing thing. It could be a finance thing. It could be a variety of things. However, what do you do in order to make yourself, position yourself in a way that makes you valuable so that when another opportunity has to presents itself to have that conversation, you can present the facts. Look what I've done, look where I've gone, look what contributions I've got. You build that confidence because you've overcome that story and the big scary deficit that you sort of were holding on. And I
Mm-hmm.
find, like with a lot of my coaching clients, there's a bunch of crazy stories that they tell themselves that when you ask them, well, hey, Carrie, what actually helped you get to that conclusion, or what helped you tell that story to yourself that is really holding you back or keeping you stuck. And when you really, like you said, you put it on paper or you have a conversation with someone like a coach or a
Mm-hmm.
consultant, when they get to that point, they were like, well, you're right. I mean, I mean, this has just been something that's just the narrative that's been playing on a loop in my head for so long. But when you bring it out into the light, it's not so scary. And you're right. Why would I give it so much power to allow it to have so much control over myself? And the reason I bring that up is I think the work that you do and the value you for sure bring to the clients you work with, and I hope I do myself, is that part of this is things that we think, especially in leadership, we hope get naturally fixed, but they never do because the human condition, the human psyche is so complicated and so difficult. And it's so much to overcome, and we can't do it on our own. We need the help. We need people like you, right? Helping us guide, through the turbulent waters so that we can find the smoother plane to really pick up momentum.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like we have an action. Oh, I'm sorry, we have a thought, which leads to an emotion, which leads to an action. So if you can grab that thought and change that thought so the emotion and then the action becomes something different, and changing that thought to like if you're thinking, oh my gosh, well, how I'm going to deal with this hybrid stuff, how and
Yep.
then your emotion becomes fear and stress, and then your action is you start being authoritative and bossing me, getting people all upset. But if you change that thought to, well, there's some possibilities here, let's just kind of go with it, then your emotion is more matter of fact, and you just kind of move along. But if you can change that thought to something exciting, like, oh wow, there's some real opportunities here, we can figure out ways to get together at certain times, and get really excited, then your emotion is excitement, and then your action is to really go out there and make things work. I think that how do you change that thought? And there's a lot of ways you can do that. You can look at the value, your experience, your education in an intentional way. You
Sure.
can look at your strengths. How was I successful at something similar? You can set your goals. There's different ways to really be intentional about changing that thought, and I think that's what we both are really good at, is helping our people get those techniques and methodologies to actually change that thought so that the emotions change and those actions change. So it's not only the success of the company, it's also your success, because
Correct. Yeah.
you want to go in the direction you want to go, and you want to be happy and fulfilled, because that's the best way to help other people do
Yeah.
that.
Absolutely. Well, and we spend so much time working, right? 80% of our waking hours is dedicated to the job that we do. And why would you want that to be something that you're not bringing the best parts of yourself to the role that you have, whether you're a leader or not, right? Being, the best possible contributor you can to the organization, doing and finding work that really is fulfilling. And part of that is really getting comfortable with who you are as an individual, which is what I think that you're really talking about, is helping, whether it be the leadership team or whether it be the folks that are part of that team, helping them figure out what those key pieces are. What are some of those questions they need to be asking themselves? What do they need to stop giving power to in terms of the negativity and the stories? And really, at the end of the day, how do you build upon the momentum and the success? Because if you look at it, you could actually have probably the most unhappy worker on a team, someone that just creates an environment of misery around themselves. They didn't get there day one, right? It became something. Something happened to create that. Even I've seen teams where you've just got that bad apple. Nobody wants to put the investment or time towards trying to solve the problem. They just want to replace it, with good reason in a lot of cases, right? But at the end of the day, there's always something that actually precipitated that situation. And you never get to that because you don't have someone that's actually committed to trying to solve the problem. They're either just trying to live with it, or they're trying to ignore it and or try and replace it. And what I find, and I think that's probably for me personally in coaching, it's probably my greatest successes are the problem children, right? The problem leaders, the problem employees, the coworkers nobody likes, helping them figure out how to get past all of that and sort of reimagine their career, reimagine the relationships that they have, and sort of owning some of what happened and what's transpired, but really how to own the process of fixing it. And I
Mhm.
suspect you do the same.
Yeah, yeah. I also think setting goals is really important. It's an intentional way to create what you want. And one of the things I always tell people is, when you set that goal, whether it's because you're struggling, or because you're a seasoned leader and you're trying to be a better leader and help the people around you. It's really when you set those goals, really think about them, but also, close your eyes and feel what it will feel like
Yep.
when the goals occur, because then you really tell your subconscious mind, and you really tell it what you want to feel, and so it has something to work from, and those things are a lot more likely to happen, or maybe something even better. But you're kind of training yourself on, that's the way I want to feel.
Yep. Absolutely.
It brings more of it.
I love it. I love it. I swear you and I could talk about this for hours because I so love your approach. I love the energy and enthusiasm you bring to the work you do. I think if you are listening to this episode on one of the podcast platforms, you got to go over to my YouTube channel just so you can see Carrie on screen. She just lights up. She just makes you happy and smile because of her approach, her energy that comes across. That's probably why you're such a gifted coach and do such a great job for your clients, Carrie. But let me shift a little bit to generally what I like to do with my podcast guests. I'm so grateful that you are here for this, and this conversation will definitely have to continue it. We'll have a sequel at some point, I promise. But I want to ask you some ripple connection questions so that people get a little sense of who you are as an individual, and just kind of have some fun with these questions, and just get a little bit more insightful into who you are, right, as an individual. What do you think the next 5 years looks like for you, and where your business is, where you're going with your coaching and your consulting and speaking? I mean, you're an amazing speaker. So what does that look like for you?
I really would like to be in the position where, one of the reasons I chose coaching was because I wanted to travel more, and I figured if I travel, I could like do coaching on the phone, and plus speaking would give me
Yeah,
opportunities to travel.
yeah, yeah.
So really, I established myself more, as far as the coaching goes. I love one-on-one coaching. I love the program. I have a 6-month program and a year program that is super, super powerful and really giving the tools for someone to think differently, interact, communicate better and with win-win, and then really be the leader that be inspiring as a leader by having a story and being really clear about who you are as a leader and what you want to accomplish. So really want to grow that piece of my business, but also I'm getting more and more into team development. So coming into companies and giving a half day or a day or 2 day programs to really change that thinking around mindset and the importance of it, and then but giving techniques to really be better leaders. And then as far as the speaking goes, really, I'd love to do more of that. Where again, I'm traveling to places that I really would like to go to, and then growing my family. I have a 15 and 18-year old, so my 18-year-old just graduated, so it was a big deal there.
Oh,
And so
congratulations.
he's going to A&M, which is
All right.
we're all Longhorns, so it's been a little struggle. But I went to the Aggie Mom meeting last weekend, and I wore my Aggie pin, and I felt sacrilegious, but there I was.
Well, you'll survive it, Mom. You'll be fine.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it'll be a new
Well,
experience for you.
the saving grace is I look a lot better in burgundy than I do in burnt orange.
I don't know about that. I've seen you in Longhorn Orange. I think you look pretty good on that as well. But yeah. Well, let me ask you this: what's the best thing, in a sentence or two about your job, that what you get to do today?
I get to be the adventuresome self I am while helping people make a difference in their own life, in the lives of the people they work with, and the world in general by upping the level of the mindset of the world.
I love that. Why is that important to you?
We all want to love what we do. Like I said, I love adventure, so I love the fact I get to meet lots and lots of different people and go different places and experience different things. But you also, one of the things that we feel so passionate about is we want to make a difference. We want to change things to in the better in our short period of time here. So the two, having adventures and also making a difference. And I love people. I connect with people when I start talking to them, and so it really feels good when I see something. I say, wow, gosh, this guy, this person, or this gal, or they have so much potential, and I can help them. I can help them make a bigger impact. I can make them more effective leaders. I can make them better communicators. I can help them, because people are, even people are doing pretty well, but they're kind of stuck,
Yep.
and I get stuck. Sometimes I have a sales coach because that's kind of where I get really stuck. So and people can can just achieve so much more and so much quicker if they have somebody who kind of can help them learn those techniques and methodologies to completely change the way they look at things and how they approach things. And then, then back to what we talked about at the very beginning, they can use their creativity and their innovation to much better causes
Yeah.
and be much more happier.
Yeah, I love that. What who would you consider your personal hero?
Oh gosh, I was having a conversation about who you would have dinner with if you had anybody, and I chose the Dalai Lama because I think he's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. What
But
is it about him that really lights you up?
Because he's intellectual and he's spiritual, I
Yep.
think that he just there was something on NPR, and somebody who's a neuroscientist. Uh, he always had he went to India as a young scholar, and got very interested in that side of it. The more inner to outward, as opposed to he was going to Harvard. They said no, not the inward outward. If you're going to be successful in this world, it's got to be outward inward. And so he
Yep.
got very very into that and kind of blew off the inward part of it. The uh, what do you call it? Uh, I can't think of the word, but meditation. That's the
Oh,
word I
okay,
was
gotcha. Yeah, yep.
looking at, and stuff like that. So he kind of blew that off. Well, he got very, very famous through his neurology, the kind of work he did. Well, the Dalai Lama asked him and 10 other people to come in and talk to him because once he became successful, then he started talking about meditation and some of these Eastern philosophies and all of this, and he started kind of bringing that in because now he was really super successful. And the Dalai Lama heard about him and brought him and a bunch of 10 other people in, and he was talking about all his experiences. And I thought, oh, that sounds so cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I love that. What is your superpower?
My superpower is really helping people connect with what they really want, shift to a positive mindset, um, communicate for true win-win, and then just really live the life of their dreams through their work.
Oh, that's good. That's a great superpower. That's a powerful superpower. What's the best piece of advice that you've received, and how do you use it?
Best piece of advice. Hmm. Probably, concentrate on the people that really admire you and care about you and appreciate you and what you offer, and not on the people that don't try to convince the people that aren't interested and aren't really into what you're doing, which is so tempting to me because I'm a people pleaser and I want, oh, the one person who doesn't appreciate me, I want to
You want to win them
list
over. You want to win
all
them over.
the
Yep.
ways that
Yep.
you can
You and
appreciate
I
me.
are very similar in that respect. Yeah.
Well, the
I,
people that already like you and admire you, put the attention on them.
but it is funny too, because sometimes we think that, we talked about it, right? The story in our heads about people that we think don't like us. And then we put all that extra effort towards that. I was speaking at an event the other day, and there was this just one guy, just, his body language was so closed off. He had his arms crossed. He had this, scowl on his face. And it just drove me nuts. And then when we broke up, I do a kind of a keynote, and then I'll put him through an actual ripple. And he came up to me and said, "This is one of the best things I've ever attended." And I'm like, really? I mean, like, the story that was in my head was like, you were not loving it. And he's like, I am just so laser focused when I hear something I like. And I'm like, man, God, I wanted to say, like, if you could just only tell your face that, it would be so much more encouraging. But, again, the story takes over, and all of a sudden you make up all these things like, this guy hates it. It's going to be a horrible, survey. They're never going to invite me back, all these things. But anyway, you and I are very similar in that regard. When we see something, or we feel like somebody doesn't resonate with our stuff, we'll put in extra effort trying to get them to, no, it's this.
I always love the nodders in the audience, because they're nodding nodding. I'm like,
Thank,
oh, I love
yeah,
that person.
thank you.
Then I've
Yeah,
become a nodder too now. So when I'm in a
exactly.
presentation, I do a lot of nodding just so that I know, because I know that the speaker just loves it.
Absolutely. It's so important. Yeah, it is definitely important. And it's important like when people are on Zoom calls too, right? You know, where you have somebody leading a presentation and it just looks like everybody is frozen or asleep, you know. It's the
Yeah,
worst
yeah.
feeling ever. But yeah, it's that's funny. What's the in your opinion, what's the most important thing in life?
Caring about the people close to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, family, friends. When it all comes down to it, it's the relationships, caring about your colleagues, the people you work with too, because you spend a lot of time with them.
Yep.
But and trusting them and enjoying that piece, I think, is probably the most important. They say that and they always are saying that too. The people that die the youngest are the people that don't have a close network to
That's
kind of
exactly
support
right.
them.
Yep.
And I think that's another thing is that one of the things that I really do with my coaching is, creating who do you focusing on the people that you really want to emulate, where you want to go. You're who the closest, what they say, the 5 10 closest
Yep.
people to you. So if you're trying to build your career, hang out in the places where the people are that are doing what you are wanting to do, or that you can help. So be careful about where you're networking and where you are, because you only have a certain amount of time. Be sure that you concentrate on doing being where you want, where the people that are there are going to help you and you're going to help them. So I think that's super
Absolutely.
important.
Yeah, that's great. Last two questions. What does the ripple effect mean to you?
Oh, totally what we were talking about. You affect one person, you give them some techniques and methodologies, you help them with emotional intelligence, you help them with conflict resolution, you help them with coming across and being an inspiring leader, and then they inspire other people,
Yeah.
and then those people pick up those methodologies and techniques, and and they affect other people, and they even bring them home. They brings it home. I mean, a lot of times people will be caretakers of their parents, or caretakers of some caretakers, and they'll all of the techniques and methodologies that we use in the business are perfect for. I always tell people, like, be sure to go around in your meetings, and go around and what are you grateful for,
Yeah.
for one other person there, or something in your business, and go around so that you've got those gratefuls. And then when you get home, do the same thing at your dinner table. At my table, we'll go around, and I'll ask my son, well, three, each of my dad and my two kids, we live together. You're three gratefuls today, and we go around the table, and we
Love
do
it.
our gratefuls. So so many of the things that you bring there, you can bring to your house, to your home too, and get that same those same advantages. And so you're spreading that to not just you, but everybody around you, including your family.
Yeah, that's really great. Last question is what ripple can I be looking to create for you?
Oh gosh, just when you're mentioning working together or supporting each other, or referring each other to if you do a presentation, refer me, and if I do a presentation, I'll refer you. And our clients are probably a little bit different, so we might complement each other in
Yeah.
certain ways. But just that your positive energy really reflects off of me, and so I can bring the joy that I'm getting from you to the rest of my day. And I love that you interview people. Gosh, you have amazing, and you've been doing this since 2016, and you bring in all these interesting people, and so I feel honored to be one of your ripples now.
Thank you. Well, I'm so grateful that you agreed to do this. Before we let you go, how would you like people to follow you or find out more about your work? We're obviously going to include your bio and some information about the the sites that you've provided, but just real quick, anybody who might just only hear this on the podcast platform how they can follow you and maybe get in touch with you to learn more about your work and what you could bring to their table.
Sure. I'm Carrie, V as in Victor, Anston.com. carrievanston.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can certainly look me up there. I'm also on Facebook, carrievanston.com. I also have a free leadership, executive leadership assessment that's free. You can find that at executiveleadershipassessment.com. Love to have you come take that. And then I do have an article that I wrote that's coming out in Texas CEO Magazine next week. And it is called, what is it? Three Strategies for, what is the name of it? Three Strategies for, can't remember exactly. Anyway, it's about celebration and changing your mindset changing your mindset when you have a win. And so that's coming out next week.
Yeah, I think so. I've got it in the pre-material that you sent me. 3 strategies to energize your mindset after the win. That's the article. It's in Texas CEO Magazine. You were mentioned in an article as well, which is searchable. And just put your name in Texas CEO Magazine. You'll find the article that Carrie was mentioned in prior. And when you actually look, by the time this episode goes live, you'll actually find this article that she wrote. And I have no doubt, I can't wait to read it. I have no doubt it's going to be awesome because you are awesome. So I'm so grateful that you are a part of the Ripple Effect podcast, Carrie. We will be back again very soon with another episode of the Ripple Effect podcast. But until then, Carrie, take care. And as always, ripple on.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Steve. It's been such a pleasure.